pastries. I'm not eating that.
I know you're not gonna.
No, I
That was
wasn't.
thoughtful.
I'm trying to remember, not feeling so great, so.
I don't know, like,
Nothing pays off, can't take off you.
I don't know why.
Not being able.
You know what, that's the only holiday that I gain.
Well, we
weight.
don't have to eat that yet.
Right, that's the only holiday where I gain weight.
Okay, so
We had.
What's our
there is, we'll wait maybe 2 or 3 more minutes and then the staff
Sure.
showed up on time.
Rather than behind collection. I didn't do this real quick, we didn't do this in weeks. It's a great idea.
What?
So Robin and Steve, I think the two of you are, virtually, but I just wanted to tell you that Lila is at a conference in Chicago right now, so she is not joining, but Raquel and I will kind of monitor, if you're the chat probably will not be looked at as specifically, but if you just kind of raise your hand, we can see you here and Raquel.
Raquel, whenever you're ready, we're live.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm ready. So, shalom everybody, wonderful to have you back. And this is our 4th and last session for this series, and who knows, maybe sometimes in the future, something else. I mentioned it earlier to the people who came in that I'm not 100% physically well. I came back from a trip to Hungary. It was a cold that developed into serious pneumonia. I'm heavily drugged, antibiotics and stuff. I'm recouping. It's a week already. But the older you get, the slower it takes to get back on your feet. So I have canceled all my classes at the beginning of this week. This is the first one I am teaching. And I figured I didn't want to disrupt this series. It may happen that I will need to cough, then I'll turn off the sound and the camera for a second, be patient, and I'll be back. And with that, let me always check, as I do, about a lingering business from last time, a question, an insight, anything you wanted to share, anything that happened that connected to our session since we last met. This would be a good moment to share it, or for you to make me aware of something that you wanted me to know about. I don't see any indication of hands raised, so I will just continue. Let me start, as always, by putting my PowerPoint session presentation on the screen for us, and you will see that even the colors changed a bit today as we are moving towards Pesach. So when I planned this session, I don't remember it was only with the rabbi or with your Rosh Hashanah as well and others, but the idea was that as we were going to cross Purim and come into the pre-Pesach mood, to try and focus on poetry were written in the wake of October 7th, but in connectedness to Passover. I will need 2, I would say, opening remarks on that. Modern Israeli poetry is constantly in conversation with the Jewish calendar. Poems, songs, works of art relating to festivals, to holidays, to historical events are being written on and on and on. As I mentioned last time about biblical motifs, the same about the festivals and the holidays. We have every year practically new additions to the Haggadah. People publish them online, people edit new Haggadot with new texts and such. And October 7th did not create an exception. It did impact the type of poetry that we had. And what we will see in the poetry that is connected to the festival of Pesach and was written in the wake of October 7th, that you will see hints or allusions to Passover, to Pesach, that are connected to a given event, security event, war event, that happened since October 7th. And sometimes you will need me to remind you what exactly was this in connection to. What happened that day, a week before Pesach or a day before Pesach, that brought about this poem. So you can see that I have many, many poems on the screen, and they, of course, are made to be shared with you. We will normally do not include all the poems in our conversation, but I always like you to have more than I can address in the class. And with that, let me take you to the first poem I want to address. And I want you, first of all, to see the graphics, the background. You can see two pictures, one of the whole city of Jerusalem and the other one of Temple Mount, and you can see lit up bodies in the sky. So this poem, called Tonight, was written on the night that we were informed about the 300 missiles launched at us from Iran. It was April last year, you may remember that. And we didn't know how many will be intercepted, and we didn't know what kind of impact that will have. And it was a very, very scary evening, actually night in Israel. Rachel or Rachel Sharansky-Danziger, I assume that the name Sharansky rings a bell. I mentioned her in the past. She's the daughter of Anatoly Sharansky. I just say in case somebody missed last class and that doesn't remember that comment. We are friendly. We talk to each other. I tried to invite her to our class, but she is so busy with the events today and with the efforts to somehow influence our government to do some more towards freeing the hostages, that stuff is getting very difficult for people who are engaged. I myself am normally, if I was not feeling the way I do, I would probably be alongside my friends and my sister and such, demonstrating day and night these days, but I'm not. Let us read this poem and see how the event of you are sitting in your home in Jerusalem and you have been told by the media that about half an hour ago or 20 minutes ago, 300 missiles have been launched from Iran towards Israel. And you have no idea what's going to happen. It ended up less horrible than we were afraid, but still it was scary. I'm reading the Hebrew first, then we'll go to the English. הלילה צבענו את מפתן בתינו באומץ, עוד אנו מחכים הותר רסן המשחית וקרב, לאט, כל כך לאט. מצב זר לנו, אנו בוגרי שערות פתע, ותיקי ה7 באוקטובר והעולם שהתפרק במהירות. אנחנו ביחד כאן, מוגנים בבתינו הלילה, מפתני בתינו אדומים מאומץ ניצבים מול הפחד בגופנו, שעה שאנו הולכים לישון. We color our doorways with courage tonight as we wait and wait. Out there, the mashchit, destroyer, is loose and moving slowly, so very slowly, an odd pace for us who are veterans of the sudden flurry, veterans of October 7th, and the world that quickly fell apart. But we are here together, protected in our homes tonight, and the doorways are red with our courage as we stand up to fear with our bodies, but letting them go to sleep. So just in case, and just to make sure, let me ask you, what is the Pesach allusion? What is the Passover allusion in this poem? I hope you can see it. I'll put it back on the screen for you to see, but I wanted to address all of you, and I'm repeating my question. What is the Passover allusion here?
The doorway is red.
Exactly, the doorway is red. So what our poet is doing, a poet educator, is taking the metaphor of the blood on the door that was supposed to be the sign of protection that horrible night, and metaphorically suggesting that that ancient metaphor is now somehow touching, coloring our doors and still hopefully protecting us. So this is really digging deep into the sensation of danger on that original first Pesach night and the one last year. This is not your quick allusion to Manishtana that you will find in so many poems, so what's new this year. This is not a quick allusion to crossing a sea of some test, etc., which are classical metaphors of poems dealing with Passover. This is very, very different and to me very touching. And I wonder if it is speaking to any of you who would like to comment or to address. Because this is the, yes, go ahead, please.
Once again, the allusion to Passover, the destroyer is going through the streets and moving and hoping, and the Jews are hoping that that their sons will be spared, the firstborn sons. So that's an allusion again to Pesach.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you for reminding us of that. But my next question was, and I wonder if this particular allusion of taking the image of the red sign on your door seals as a protection used by Rachel Danziger Sharansky as a metaphor to the need for protection that particular night as the missiles were coming. If that speaks to you, if that touches you in any way. If there is anybody who would like to address that. Okay. Yeah.
My response, first of all, hearing the Hebrew, I heard a lot of like the end rhymes, like where your voice was like ending what I imagine would be
Mashchit, karev, peta. Yeah. Yeah.
they were consonants, so they had like a definitive and a harsher quality to them, which I think is quite powerful because there's a forcefulness if you're thinking of missiles and stuff, the sounds of what that might be if they land. So I think the language itself, to me, hearing it in Hebrew was extraordinarily.
Does thank you, any sense of the fear coming through to you? That this is a poem actually composed while we are waiting. There was about a 3-hour wait. Does any of that tension recaptures that original Passover as you are afraid not to be touched by the Mashchit, the destroyer? Yeah, it does. I'm glad to hear that. And okay, with that, let me take you to yet another, and also the graphics. These were pictures that we could see on the television once the missiles started arriving, as they were intercepted by Iron Dome and other tools just over Temple Mount. And these were original pictures from my own screen that I took that night. Okay, and we will continue. Now this demands a little bit more of a preparation, and it is called Another Page of the Haggadah. The writer Shuri Chazan, I happen to know, actually I'm very close with his sister, but he himself is a social worker. He is an Orthodox man. In the anthology Shiva that we were looking at, there was another poem by him, maybe even two, and he does here a play on words that I need for you to listen to, even if you do not speak Hebrew. When we start the Haggadah, we read, there are these two commandments, Kadesh Urechatz. You can see the letters on the screen. Do the Kiddush and wash up. Look at the word on the left-hand side in the brown thing, where it said Urechatz, Vav, Reish, Chet, Tzadik. Even if you do not speak Hebrew, maybe most of you recognize the letters. Now he changes one letter. We have seen that technique already in the poetry in the post-October 7th. He leaves the Kadesh intact, do the Kiddush. But instead of the Rechatz, Reish, Chet, Tzadik, he changes the place of the two letters in the middle. And instead of rechatz, you get utzrach. And now it becomes do the kiddush and scream. Instead of wash, which is the ordinary commandment as we start the Seder, Shuri Chazan says, this year, I just switched 2 letters to convey to you my mood. I'm going to sit at the Seder table after October 7th. I'm going to do my Kiddush, but I will scream in pain, in frustration. I'm reading the Hebrew. Pesach Tashpad, that's the Hebrew date. Kadesh utzrach, kol כך הרבה השתנה. השולחן מלא חללים ריקים. כאב נטמן בחורים ובסדקים. כותבים פרק בהגדת השנים. פסח תשפ"ד קדש וצרח. נותר דם על המשקוף, השולחן מלא חללים ריקים. היא שעמדה אולי תעמוד לנו. כותבים דף בהגדת השנים. מבקשים חירות צחה מכתמי יין. נותר דם על המשקוף. מההר ומהשדות מקבצים רוח. היא שעמדה אולי תעמוד לנו. תקווה זקנה מלטפת את עורפנו. מבקשים חירות צחה מכתמי יין. והגדת לבנך שבכל הלילות, מההר ומהשדות מקבצים רוח. תקווה זקנה מלטפת את עורפנו. תפילה ישנה שפתיה ממלמלות. Passover 2024. That was last year, a year into the war already. Kadesh Tzrach. So much has changed. The table is filled with empty spaces. Pain is hidden in holes and cracks. A page is being written in the Haggadah for the ages. Pesach 2024, Kadesh Utzrach. Do the Kiddush and scream. Blood remains on the lintel. The table is filled with empty spaces. May that which sustained us sustain us again. A page is being written in the Haggadah for the ages. We seek a freedom unsullied by wine. Blood remains on the lintel. From the mountains and the fields where the wind gathers, may that which sustained us sustain us again. An old hope caresses our necks. We seek a freedom unstained by wine, and you shall tell your child that on all nights, from the mountains and the fields where the wind gathers, an old hope caresses our necks, its lips murmuring an old prayer. I want you to note, I'll go through this very slowly and handpick for you, and you can follow and help me if you see more, all the Haggadah, the Passover allusions. But I want you to note that the poem is striving very hardly to conclude on a note of hope. A poem that is about screaming, about yelling, about changing the tradition and not keeping that which we were supposed to do, the washing, but rather the yelling instead, is leading its way towards hope and far away from the scream. So Passover 2024, Kadesh Utzrach, do your Kiddush and scream. So much has changed. Look at the entry point. Normally we say, so ma nishtana, what had changed? And just like he replaced letters, changed their places, he changes the order. And before the question is even asked, as if there is no need to ask, how is that Passover so different from all other? We immediately get the obvious answer, like, ma nishtana, what had changed? Da. So much has changed. The table is filled with empty spaces. Now that's a line that one has to stop by and take a deep breath. Look at the juxtaposition of filled and empty. They don't work together. Either it's empty or it's filled. But what Shuri Chazan is noticing, that around the national, the larger community Seder, there are so many people missing, especially in the kibbutzim, in the moshavim, in the places that have been evacuated. The table is filled with empty spaces. Our new presence is filled with absence. Let's go to the next line, which is a very clear Passover allusion. Pain is hidden in holes and cracks. You know the mitzvah of looking for chametz in holes and cracks the previous night. Again, he is not sending you to look in the cracks. He is telling you what you will find there. Every crack of our life is now, you don't look for chametz. You will see the holes, in the holes, the cracks. And now he concludes, and because of that, because we yell instead of washing, because instead of a full table, it's full with emptiness, because instead of finding chametz in the cracks, we find our pain there, and page is being written in a Haggadah for the ages. We are now adding a page to that classical old book. Pesach 2024, Kadesh Utzrach, do your Kiddush and yell. Blood remains on the lintel. So you can take this again, the same metaphor that we have seen in the previous poem. That which was supposed to protect us, here maybe becomes the metaphor from homes that had been touched by blood, homes where firstborns and secondborns and fathers and sons have been killed or wounded by blood, so on our lintels, blood remains on the lintel. Repetition, the table is filled with empty spaces. We come to another famous line from the Haggadah, Vehi she'amda, may that which sustained us sustain us again. There is a call upon that ancient power and strength that sustained us to be here for us. A page is being written in a Haggadah for the ages. We seek freedom unsullied by wine. I think, and blood remains on the lintel. I think, for me at least, is a beautiful metaphor, because you know our Haggadot and the tablecloth always gets sullied and stained by wine that may look like blood. And we are looking for something now. A freedom does not require all those bloody stains to be maintained. Blood remains on the lintel. And now look at the mood that is changing. From the mountains and the fields where the wind gathers, may that which sustained us, Hi she'amda, back to the Haggadah, sustain us again. An old hope caresses our necks. It's not facing us. It's coming from behind, like a caress of a parent or a loved one. We seek a freedom unstained by wine. And you shall tell your child, again, a commandment of the Haggadah. This is how we start, Vehigadeta. And here comes a new page. And you shall tell your child that on all nights from the mountains and the fields, where the wind gathers and old hope caresses our necks, it lips murmuring an old prayer. I don't know how you want to read these lines, but I have my suggestion. I think that another line or another page in the Haggadah that Shuri is seeking to encourage us to change is not to repeat to our children just the stories of the tragedies and the horror, but give them hope, give them a promise. It's no time now to dwell on all that blood again and again. Our kids who are traumatized need hope. Shuri, I know him by trade, a social worker, is thinking about a new commandment. The new commandment of what needs to be told to our children is give them hope, give them sustenance, not just a commemoration of the tragedy. So a poem that starts with a full recognition of the empty spaces, on the blood on the lintel, on the need to scream and yell, is leading its way with a commandment to give the children something to hang on to, some hope. Let me stop here and see if there are any comments or anybody would like to share how this poem touches them, if at all.
I think Anita.
Go ahead, Anita, please.
Tikva. That's been the Jews' anthem for many hundreds of years, Hatikva, the hope. And that's in the last two lines brings us away from the pain.
Yeah, so you are taking it as an allusion to the national anthem, while I was suggesting a reading of just the hope itself and not necessarily the song. I like this combination. Thank you for that. Anybody else? Okay, just a question of curiosity. If you are planning your own seders, would this be something that you would consider bringing to a seder this year?
Yes.
Or
I
Susan was saying yes.
I did not hear what was said.
said, I will bring this page to my Seder. My goal is to have meaningful Seder for whoever is there, Jewish, not Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
Try
Okay.
to create the story in the current, within
Yeah,
the current.
and pay attention to show them how it leads towards hope, that it does not stay on the tragedy. It recognizes the pain, but it leads towards a hopeful message for the next generation. That is, to me at least, very important if you are indeed including this. Okay, let us try one more, I suggest, if there are no further comments. Okay, this is sort of a shorter one, and Eliyahu, and it relies on a combination between a reference to a very mundane contemporary language that you will find in the ads, in the paper where jobs are offered. The word is darush, wanted, or even somebody who is wanted by the police, darush. And then it will manage to take us from, as if he is now advertising in a paper for a position. He is looking for somebody to fill a position. Let's read the Hebrew. Darush, darush kol yachol, דרוש בדחיפות מישהו שיכול לסבול עד אינסוף, מישהו להכיל כל הצער, כי ליבי צר וזמני קצר, וכמה חמלה אוכל לשאת וכמה בהלה, דרוש מישהו שאינו בשר ואינו עפר, מישהו שזרועו נטויה מעל אדמת הזמן. The Passover allusion is very small here. So let us see if we can find it. English. Wanted. An omnipotent, urgently wanted someone who can suffer endlessly, someone to contain all the sorrow because my heart is narrow and my time is short, and how much compassion can I bear and how much fear? Wanted. Someone who is not of flesh, not dust, someone whose outstretched arm is above the land of time. The Pesach allusion is the Hayad Chazaka. Yad Chazaka was Ro Netuya, the outstretched. But he manages, through the sort of like technical details of the requirements of the job, we arrive, what we need is a Pesach miracle. What we need is somebody to perform the same kind of magic and to deliver us out of. The reasons given are interested and the qualification. Look at what is needed. Omnipotent. You realize that this is something beyond human. It's beyond a new politician. It's beyond elections. It's beyond demonstrations. We need something stronger. Urgently. We cannot tarry. Wanted someone who can suffer endlessly. Help will come from an agent, from a power that has compassion and knows how to suffer. Someone to contain all the sorrow, because my heart is narrow. The translation here is beautiful and kept some of the rhythm, the sorrow and narrow. Why? Because my time is short, and how much compassion can I bear? There is an on and on recognition of the limitations of our human ability to contain the experience that we are experiencing. There is almost like a prayer mode. This is actually a prayer. The wanted is like, please give me, do it, please, now. I'm now working for another course on poetry of the Middle Ages, and this is how Ibn Gabirol and Yehuda Levi created those poems that later became part of prayer. And you recognize your shortcomings. You know that you are turning to somebody or something that is beyond you, and you need their absolute power, but also compassion, because how much more can you bear? And how much fear. Remember the poem we started this. One wanted someone who is not of flesh, just in case you missed it the first time, not dust. Someone whose outstretched arm is above the land of time. So not only from Egypt to Israel, you need a transference in time. You need to reach a different phase. You need to go to a different place, and all encompassed in the shape of a wanted ad. I happen to like this poem very much. I also like Eli Eliyahu. Any comments about it? Any questions about it?
I'm struck more by the decision of like the form, like you said, you explained to us that this was like a wanted ad, something you would see in a newspaper. So that is so clearly who the speaker is addressing, like a omnipotent being is not necessarily going to a newspaper. So,
Yeah.
yeah, and so I really love it because I think by choosing the form of a newspaper, it's the poet is writing it for other humans, but is addressing like a being, something.
And also, when you write a wanted ad, you need to be very concise and very particular on what exactly you are looking for. And he's trying to do that, you know, the omnipotent but compassionate, the ability to suffer endlessly, to take over from me because I have my shortcomings. And then, you know, like that one back in Egypt, that's the one, that's the model. This is the one I want. You know, and I think it's really beautiful. Anybody else on this one? Okay, so Eli Eliyahu is a well-known poet, unlike some of the poets who only started writing recently. And if ever you decide to go into the exploration of the Mizrahi poetry in Israel, his nowadays is a very important voice and worth studying and looking at.
Maddie just
Yes.
had one additional comment.
I wanted to say, to me, embedded in this wanted ad is hope.
Mm-hmm.
Hope. I don't think someone prays who doesn't have hope, because they wouldn't pray if they felt totally defeated. There is hope.
You will not take the trouble to put the ad in the paper if you are hopeless. Yeah.
That's right. Putting it out, and also the thing that I see is a relevance to the Red Sea parting, because the outstretched arm that parted the Red Sea, that provided an escape from the pain, the fear, the difficult situation of mankind. So I see that related to Passover.
Mhm. Yeah, well, we included it because I saw the same, but I'd like to make two additional comments. You know, when we go through processes of therapy and healing personally, oftentimes one of the hardest things to do is to put to words that which you need, like to recognize your failure to hold the compassion, to accept that you are fearful, to say it, to turn out and seek help, to say, I needed, come help me. And then one of the beautiful part is the ability to imagine the help. And he has the perfect metaphor of Passover, the zroa netuya, the outstretched arm. That's the image. That's the one I need. Just like back then in Egypt. And I need it now, and I'm going to put it in the paper. And maybe somebody will show up. Okay, if there is nothing in addition.
Yes, I want to just add, from what you were saying, it reminded me of the humility of the writer.
Did you notice? Did you notice his name?
Eliyahu. Yes.
Isn't it amazing? Like Eli, which is my God, and Eliyahu, which is Eliyahu. It's an Iraqi name, by the way. It's an Iraqi name. He is that. He also has a radio program, and I listen to him often. And I enjoy, among other things, his modesty. Unlike many media people. Let us try and do one more and see where it takes us. Okay. This is a slightly more complicated one, so we'll take it slowly. Let me introduce the speaker again to you. It's Osnat Eldar. I think, yeah, we must have had poetry by her in previous sessions. Osnat has become a friend through the process of doing the anthology. She is the poet who has the largest number of poems in the Shiva anthology. And we have become friendly recently. She's a rabbi, a reform rabbi, to a small community in Zichron Yaakov called Sulam Yaakov, Jacob's Ladder. The poem is called Scarecrow. We are reading through the Hebrew, and then we'll go very slowly through the English. בשעה שנחיל כטב"מים מאיים להחריב את שדותיי, כך חושפים מקורות זרים, אני עומדת רגליי נטועות עמוק באדמה, המנסה להקיא אותי מעליה כבר יותר מ-40 שנה. אפילו אומץ לבקש אין לי אומץ. הובסתי. לא משה אנוכי, ואין משמעות אם מרים ידיי או אניחה. עייפתי. אין לי כוח להמשיך ולנדוד. לתומי חשבתי שיצאנו ממצרים. עשה בי כרצונך באמת. איבדתי את הרצון להתנגד, לחשוב, להרגיש, לשיר. עומדת דחלילית בידיים פשוטות. יתושים של אביב מתסיסים את דמי. עוד שבועות ספורים נחזור לברך על הטל, ואני עוד לא הצלחתי להחליף השנה את העיתים. Lots of religious references, date references to when the poem was composed, very shortly before Pesach of last year. Scarecrow. While a swarm of drones threatens to destroy my fields, so foreign sources reveal. This is what oftentimes they say on Israeli media when they don't want to say that it's the IDF that says. So they will say foreign sources. While a swarm of drones threatens to destroy my fields, so foreign sources reveal, I'm standing, my feet planted deep in the soil that had tried to vomit me up for more than 40 years. I don't even have the courage to ask for courage. I'm defeated. I'm no Moses. It doesn't matter if I hold up my hands or let them fall. I'm tired. I have no strength to continue and to wander. I naively thought we had left Egypt. Do unto me as you will. Truthfully, I have lost the will to resist, to think, to feel, to sing. I stand like a scarecrow with outstretched hands. Spring mosquitoes are fermenting my blood. In a few weeks we will again start praying for dew, and I haven't even managed this year to change the seasons. As we go into this poem, which does need a little bit of hand-holding, I'm afraid, I'd like to start from the end. October 7th was Simchat Torah, and this is the day when we start switching our prayers, and we stop praying for dew, and we start praying for rain. And we will do that for 6 months, and then will come Passover, and we will stop praying for rain, and we'll start praying for dew again for the whole summer until next Sukkot. This is called changing the seasons in synagogue. Changing the seasonal prayer with accordance to agriculture, to nature in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel. So when she says here in the poem, in a few weeks, we will again start praying for dew, she reminds us of Simchat Torah, of the day of the disaster. And I haven't even managed this year to change the seasons. I'm still stuck in Simchat Torah. And we know that soon Passover is coming. So this was written about a year ago. And she's saying, I'm not yet there. I'm not functioning within time. I'm not sure I stopped praying for dew. I forgot because of the disaster. So there is a disconnect from time. There is a loss of law and order and sequence that happens in normal life. And therefore the human being loses humanity and becomes a scarecrow. While swarms of drones threaten to destroy my fields, so foreign sources reveal. Yeah, all the time we were attacked by drones and they were destroying the fields. Osnat lives in an agricultural community in a kibbutz up north, and this is where most of the drones were coming from the Hezbollah in Lebanon. So the image is very, very personal. I'm standing, my feet planted deep in the soil that has tried to vomit me up for more than 40 years. I love the 40 years for 2 reasons. This is a reminder, of course, of our time in the desert, but this is also how old she is. And she experiences her life in Israel as an ongoing attempt to kick us out from here. My feet planted deep in the soil that had tried to vomit me up for more than 40 years. I don't even have the courage to ask for courage. There's inability to pray. I'm defeated. And now comes the major Passover image. I'm no Moses. It doesn't matter if I hold up my hands or let them fall. You remember the story when the people of Israel come out of Egypt and they have to fight a war, and the way for Moses to encourage his people to do well is to hold his arms up so they can see. But he is tiring. So Caleb and Joshua are standing on both his sides to hold his arms up to maintain the courage of the fighters of the people of Israel. And here is a letting go. And here is a sense that who cares if I hold my hands up? Maybe doubts about her leadership, maybe doubts about her ability to be a rabbi in these days. Who cares if I can hold up my arms? I'm no Moses. I don't have the capacity. I'm tired. I have no strength to continue and to wander naively. I naively thought we had left Egypt. Like, I live within the national story. I thought the Exodus had happened again. So how come we are back in this dire situation? Do unto me as you will, truthfully. I have lost the will to resist, to think, to feel, to sing. The days before Passover, mainly because the Iranian attack, because the large number of growing losses in the battles then both in in Gaza and later in Lebanon really brought many of us and the hostages that did not look anyway as hopeful at that time. And now comes these last ending lines of the poem. I stand like a scarecrow with outstretched hands. She's not like Moses. She is like something artificial, going through the motions. Spring mosquitoes are fermenting my blood. The combination of the drones of the enemy at the beginning and the natural enemies of the spring in Israel, the mosquitoes, and then the conclusion, which tells us or gives us a key to the reading of this poem. In a few weeks, we will again start praying for dew, just like we stopped doing that on Simchat Torah when the tragedy hit. We were supposed to stop to do that, but honestly, and I haven't even managed this year to change the seasons. So this is maybe a poem with less hope than we have seen in previous ones, but I wanted you to have a taste of this sense of fatigue and tiredness and hopelessness that is part of our life here constantly. Like we go through the motions, and people continue to volunteer and go to work and take care of what needs to be taken care of. And those of us who serve continue to serve, but there is a fatigue, there is a tiredness, there is a sense of not knowing where this is going and for how much longer. And the days are hard, and some of us still summon up the courage to go to demonstrations, and others do not even have that. This is also part of the mood, and this too is expressed in Passover language. So the images of Moses, this shift of the prayer, the exodus from Egypt, the 40 years of mentioning of wandering in the desert, all of them come into the composition of a poem that says basically, I'm tired, I'm losing hope, I'm not sure about my own leadership, time is disjointed for me. This is what Osnat was saying about a year ago. And I'd love to hear how you are hearing these words, if you would like to share any of it. Maybe you are angry at me if I bring you poems that are not hopeful. Maybe you would like me to bring only the better stuff. You would.
I'd like to say something.
Please do, and can they turn the camera to you so that I can hear you better?
Yes, I'm going to talk. Hello, hopefully the camera will come here. This talks to me in the sense that despite having a level of exhaustion, there is still resilience underneath. And the recognition, the tremendous honesty and recognition of where this person is at, or the people of Israel are at, but yet there is a resilience despite a level of being totally drained. There is a loss of will, but I really believe it's also a cry for help from an outside source.
Yeah, it is also in a shape of a prayer, I would say. I agree with you there. I'm not so sure about resilience at any moment. There are in our lives here, and many of us who indeed need help because they are losing hope, because they are becoming desperate. And for me to bring you only the poems that are hopeful and end on a positive note and express a total belief in a swift, better resolution would be false, would be untrue. If you want to connect to who we are and where we are, there is need to hear these voices as well. So I hope you're not too upset with me for bringing them. Yes.
One other contribution, just because you had mentioned like where we are, we meaning Jews in Israel. What was very powerful to me is the connection to the land. So the poet chose a scarecrow, which already has like a universal understanding that there's a connection to the agriculture. But scarecrow is not moved, like a scarecrow is planted differently, not growing, but it's planted. And for a rabbi that's such a visible kind of leadership to be a rabbi. So just determining that in this poem, at least, she's identifying herself or letting the speaker be visible, not speaking in many ways. Just that's very powerful. Just the choice of being a scarecrow and not like
I want to share with you something. When this was written last year, I had a session in my regular classes in which there are about 100 participants with her poetry and nothing but her poetry. We did 4 or 5 poems by Osnat. And 2 of them were addressing being a rabbi these days. And what I have done before she came and before the class, because the class has quite a few women rabbis in it, I prepared them and I asked them to have the conversation with her and from their rabbinical positions to address her. And it turned out to be a beautiful, beautiful session of women rabbis in leadership at time, at despair, and need to reach out to each other. And it's recorded somewhere, and it was a beautiful, beautiful session. And let us try and do 1 or 2 more if we can. Okay. Let me take you to the next one. Okay, Astar Shamir. Astar Shamir, where is Moses? I think that here you do not need me to ask you where is the Passover allusion, because it's very clear. But in this class again, I need to teach you a little bit of Hebrew before we get started. The Passover evening is called Seder, that you know. What you may not know, that the word Seder in Hebrew, in colloquial, everyday Hebrew, means order. And the expression Beseder means everything is fine. Like, how are you? Beseder, I'm okay, Beseder. And what Astar Shamir is doing, she is working on that expression. Like if you were asked, are you okay? And she will say, no, we are not okay. We are not beseder. So let's listen to the Hebrew first, then go to the English, then I will show you something structurally interesting. איה משה, לא תודה, אנחנו לא בסדר. לא ממשיכים כרגיל. לא מתכננים את ליל הסדר. כמו כל חג החירות באפריל, לא נחגוג יציאת מצרים. אנחנו לא בני חורין, כולנו שבויים, לא נשתה 4 כוסות יין, לא נקרא הגדה מסובים ושטויים. מה נשתנה הפסח הזה? שלא הושיענו עדיין מידם. מי זה שלא מרגיש בליבו מנהרות חטופים, חפורות בכל נימי אדם? אז לא, אנחנו לא בסדר. איה משה שיעבירנו בחורבה, שלא יותיר עמו בשבי, שלא ישאיר ישראל חרבה. And the English. Where is Moses? No thanks, we are not okay. בסדר. We are not continuing as usual. We are not planning the Seder, as though it were the normal April festival of freedom. We won't celebrate the exodus from Egypt. We aren't free. We are all captives. We won't drink 4 glasses of wine. We won't read the Haggadah reclining and intoxicated. How is this Pesach different? מה נשתנה? He hasn't yet delivered us from their hands. Who doesn't feel the hostages' tunnels in his heart, burrowed into blood vessels? So no, we are not beseder. Where is Moses to lead us across on dry land, Choravah in Hebrew? Who wouldn't leave his people in captivity? Who wouldn't leave Israel destroyed, Chareva? I wanted you to see and to listen to the play on words between dry land, Choravah, and destroyed, Chareva. And what I want to show you about this poem is this. I'm leaving it wordless. Just look at the highlighted words, those who can read Hebrew, and those who cannot, look at the English. Look at the amount of negation, or if you wish, anger, or you wish inacceptance. I don't want to say negativity. I think it's rebellion rather than negativity. And tell me how you feel about a poem like this, which actually expresses a lot of anger. Anybody? I'm not going to ask you whether you want to include a poem like this in your own seders, but I'm asking you to try and, if you were going to meet this person, Astar is a woman more or less of my age, close to 80. She is a performer still, and a lyric writer and a songwriter, and a very interesting person, pretty well known in Israel. And if you were to meet her, would you accept her refusal to hold a Seder in 2024? Or would you tell her, no, we still need to?
We still need to.
You still need to. But how would you react to her refusal?
Because to not hold the Seder is to give up hope.
Mm-hmm.
And even though she ends on the word destroyed, and it's a play with the dry land with Moses, this Pesach is different. And it was different for everybody last year, because all over the world Jews were mourning. But not to hold it, I don't think I'll ever say Beseder again without thinking about this. And we say it all the time. Because we're not going on as usual. But even though we're not going on as usual, Jews, I go back to the other poem, Tikva.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hope. We have hope. We see hope in our eyes, in our brains, in our hearts, and we go forward. So I would say no, it's not okay not to hold the Seder.
It's not okay not to hold. Anybody who can still feel and understand Astar? Not necessarily accept, but somehow understand.
Well, I think that, she is expressing a lot of anger, and it's not resolved yet. She's in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
So she is at a loss of hope. But, it's a questioning also. Don't we do this when we have all these challenges, throughout our history? Where are you, God? It's a questioning. I also feel that she hasn't yet admitted that she is, I thought of a word, not destroyed, she is with, no, there's something else. She is given up.
She had enough.
I haven't sensed that she's given up. She's in the questioning mode, in the angry mode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Did
she
it
doesn't,
ever happen to you that you were going through a certain experience that made the next festival just impossible? And I'm
yes,
not gonna light Hanukkah candles. I cannot do Purim this year. Did it happen to you?
I don't know, but I don't think she's admitting to quite defeat. She's not there at defeat,
Mm-hmm.
even though she says that uses the negative words. She's again reaching out and asking why, but angry at the same time.
You're hearing why in all the no, 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 I want. You're hearing the why question. Why is it happening again and again?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see a difference between her despair and the one of the rabbi in the previous poem, the scarecrow? Do you see different positions?
Yes.
Yeah. I think that Osnat is, the rabbi, is a bit more resilient, a bit more in the know that she needs to hang on. And Astar is very, very angry and disappointed at this point. We don't even hear despair, we just hear mainly anger. And it's time for you to do something for me. This is what we hear in this poem. Okay.
And rebellion.
And rebellion.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is a beautiful one, and it's by our rabbi from before, Osnat, and I need to start by telling you a midrash. There is a quote in Hebrew from the Mishnah, from the Torah, ותתייצב אחותו מרחוק לדעה מה יעשה לו. Miriam would prophesy, says the Talmud, and say, in the future my mother will give birth to a son who will save the Jewish people. And once Moses was born, the entire house was filled with light. Her father arose and kissed her on her head. He said to her, my daughter, your prophecy has been fulfilled. But once they put him into the river, her father arose and hit her on her head. He said to her, my daughter, where is your prophecy? And so it is written, and his sisters stood far off to know what would befall him in Exodus, to know the outcome of her prophecy. So actually, you can see that this is focused on two women. The rabbi, Osnat, who is writing the poem about Miriam, Moses' sister. And for brevity, I'm going straight to the English. Miriam's prophecy. It seems her faith was complete, as if she heard the promise of the covenant before it was given. If not, she wouldn't have cast into the river's water a wicker basket with a future leader inside, and the life story of a people in the making. And I, walking among the shards of my fractured faith, as though on pebbles on the bank of a great river, pray that she is standing far off, knowing what will befall me. And to me, this one is very, very touching, because I know Osnat, I know the rabbi. She is a person of faith, and she is hanging on to her faith, to her leadership, to her poetry. And she had managed to find in one of those many Passover stories the story of the role of the sister, of that other woman who has an endless faith, as she says. And our poet Osnat is hoping that Miriam's faith, standing on the bank seeing what will happen to Moses, is also looking out for her to see what will happen to her. I think this is a good moment for us to conclude these series of 4 meetings that led us from the poems reacting to shock at the very beginning, as time went by, biblical allusions, and today some allusions to Passover. I hope you found this interesting. I hope some of this may reach your Passover tables in a few weeks, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you and to study together. Toda rabah.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Rachel.
Mhm.